Hi, and welcome to Out the Box Talk, another episode and another wonderful guest. Who do we have here today? We have India's leading podcaster. He is an amazing individual, a wonderful person to talk to, and more importantly, he is the man of the inspiring talk. He has been inspiring a lot of people across the globe with his wonderful podcast. So, over to Bijay today.
Thank you, Harish. Thank you so much for having me here. I'm often the one asking questions to people, and it is always interesting to be on the other side of the table and answering questions.
Nice, nice. I too thank you for kind of inspiring me to be like starting my own podcast and channel. I remember I too relate with that because I always been behind the camera, largely doing interviews with celebrities and large industries. But then it never occurred that, okay, let me get in front of the camera and do the interview. And it's been a pleasurable ride for me so far. So I'm really enjoying this. So Bijay, let me start off with something. I want to understand in terms of how it all started. How was your early childhood? With family and friends and schooling to where you have come down today. So if you can quickly take us through a little journey of like kind of rewind and see how it has been for you.
Wow, I think that's like that's quite a journey that I've had there. So you know looking back at my childhood, when I look back at my childhood and I ask myself, hey, what were the dreams that I had as a kid? And it often comes down to two different kind of dreams that I had. So the first dream that I had as a kid was, because I was one of those, very active kids who would try and go ahead and participate in all the debate competitions, who would participate in the, speech contest and win award for the school. I would be the head boy of my, school, and so on and so forth, and all of that. And I was very influenced by the whole idea of being on the television, just the way right now I am. At least you are putting me in this box, right? Being inside the box of television, or being on the microphone on the radio, that always fascinated me. And because I was, I would enjoy being on the microphone, whether that's on stage or whether that's on giving the speeches and participating in all these debate competitions. I had like, hey, you know what, I kind of love speaking, and here is this profession where you can get paid just by talking, which is being a television presenter or a radio jock. And that was the kind of dream that I held dear to me, and that was something that I grew up for first half of my childhood, and that was something that was my dream, I would like to call. This was the dream that I had for myself. And when I was in my 8th grade, my uncle went to the US for the masters, and he was the only one person ever to go to the US in our, I don't know, how many families, or even the village where we come from. Everybody would know our family by saying that, he is so-and-so's nephew, he is so-and-so's cousin, he's so-and-so's brother, right? And everybody started getting known by my uncle, because he was the most successful person in not only our family but the entire village. And that kind of started becoming my dream, I would like to say acquired dream, because my parents would say that, hey, you know what, you got to be like your uncle. And this was something I started believing. Yeah, I think that's something that I should do as well, because this is amazing, where you go to the US and live a different lifestyle, and then your life is set. And that's the dream I kept growing with until my late, I would say, college life. I studied pharmacy, and I went to the college. I completed that. I joined the I took up the job, but still when I was at my job for the first few years of doing my job, first 1 year of doing my job, I was still like, hey, you know what, I'm going to prepare for the GRE, which is the exam that you need to take before you can go to the US, right? So I was preparing for my master's, and because I was topper at my college, my parents knew for a fact that our kid is eligible to go to the US, and that too on a scholarship. So I was preparing that. I was preparing to go to the US, do masters there, and maybe settle there. And 1.5 years of doing my job as a research scientist at a pharmaceutical company, I realized that how much I hate being in the lab. I realized that, hey, you know what, this is not what I was supposed to do. Here I am playing with the glass tubes and chemicals and so on and so forth, but this is not what I wanted to do. And the dream that I had as a kid kind of started coming back, saying that, hey, you know what, you never wanted to be bounded in these four walls and doing this communicating with these chemicals and being in the lab doing this stuff. What are you doing? And then I started asking myself a question like, hey, if you don't want to be a research scientist, then what is it that you want to be? And simply the answer that came was, I don't know. And I truly did not know what I wanted to do, because all I did was study pharmacy. All I knew was to become a research scientist, but I don't know anything else. Then, I thought, and I was reading a lot of self-help. I was going to a lot of, seminars, attending a lot of workshops. So I was getting exposed to this entire world of personal transformation. I, was getting exposed to these incredible people who have done this amazing thing, CEO who is building this amazing company, TED speaker who have done some incredible things, or author who has written this best-selling book that is making wave in the world, or a blogger who would write this great blog on personal transformation and everybody would follow him or her. So I thought these people have answers, and maybe they can give me a blueprint which I can follow, the template that they can give me, which I can follow and use in my own life. So, because of that, what I thought was, hey, you know what, I think it would be interesting to have conversations with people and ask them, how did you figure out what you wanted to do in your life? Because I want to figure out what I want to do in my life, and I don't know how. So it seems like that you have figured out how you knew that you wanted to be a CEO of the company, how you decided that you wanted to write a book or climb Mount Everest, whatever that is. When that thought hit, and I was like, okay, I need to do this. I want to have conversations with people and just understand what is it that they want to do. So I started podcast in 2017. I would tell people, hey, I would like to share your story with the world, and started interviewing people and share their story, and most importantly, learn from them and ask all the questions that I had, that about life, about struggle, about success, about failure, about mindset, everything that I wanted to ask them, all the questions that I have and things that I wanted to learn. For instance, if I wanted to learn about meditation, I'll go and find who is the best person that I can bring on the show, who can talk about meditation and teach me meditation. And it so happened that people who would listen to me also find those questions interesting and relevant, because those are the questions that they are asking as well. And people started tuning in, and that's how podcast kind of started happening. So yeah, that's like a very condensed form of what has been my journey like.
Wow. I think it's been amazing. I think it's like what do you say, in a couple of minutes I saw a Bollywood movie, very nice, it's that kind of point of inflection and all that you brought in. But I'm going to get back to something very fundamental, what you said there in that part, where you said like in families largely in Asia, India, and all countries around, we have this thing of, when you're conditioned as a child, like you said, the conditioning, see the mama ka ladka has gone abroad, he's the point of reference, and suddenly the entire family and others, that becomes a point of reference for the conversation. So did you have you mentioned that happened, but how strong was it? Was that a lot of conditioning that happened at home, that this is what our family is, this is what we are expected to grow, or this is what you need to be like that uncle? And was that kind of conditioning not only at home, was it also happening, say, in school, where the school said you have to do this, or say in college? And finally, when you came down to work, did you face that conditioning ritual, or were you empowered on the other end, where you said, son, you're our gifted child, you can have anything under the sun, ye le lo, podcast karna shuru kar do, or anything of, did things like that happen? How was it for you in that?
So obviously not the second one where, son, go and do anything, because I come from a lower middle class family, and my father, really had to work hard to send me and my sister to the school, and I'm really grateful for them, making that a priority. They moved us from the village to the town so that we can go to the school, a good one, and then get education there. So while I won't say like it was really bad that we don't have food and stuff like that. It was not that. We had basic stuff, which is like you had a basic food, and you would get a couple of pair of clothes every year, and you go to the school, and we were living most of my life till the college. We spent in one room where all of us would live in one single room, right? So that's even when we had that, right? Because of that, there's always this conditioning that comes from a parent, like, hey, you know what? Think about how you can change our lives if you go to the US. And think about how your life will change when you go to the US and start earning in dollars, and that will completely change the trajectory of our lives. And also because I have grown in that condition, as I said, most of our life we have grown up in one single room, and because of that, you wanna so come out of it. And the only way that you also see, which is possible for you because someone has done it, is that, hey, you know what? If I go to the US, I can earn in dollars and I can get my family out of this, and then we can have much better lifestyle than what it is. And you also start believing that, and because you don't see other options, which is possible for you, and then you start believing in the same thing, and obviously it would be the constant reminder from the family that, hey, remember that you need to go to the US, and you also strongly believe that, oh, you know what, I think that is something that I completely can do, because that you are doing academically good, and that you also have a bit of these other things that you do on the side, which is you do debate speeches and so on and so forth, which also adds to the profile for you to go to the US and get the scholarship. So fast forward to my first year of my job. Obviously, I was preparing. I had taken TOEFL. TOEFL is another English test that you give before going to the US, and GRE is for the graduate college. And I had already taken TOEFL. I had scored good, and then I was preparing for the GRE. And at the same time, the realization starts hitting me that, hey, you know what? I hate this job. I hate being a research scientist in pharmacy, and here I am preparing for next 2 years of studying pharmacy, and after that I'm set for life to do things that I really don't enjoy today. Then why the hell am I doing this? And that feeling, Harish, is a really scary one, because that your parents and the condition that your parents have been to send you to the college and school, and how they have managed to get you this education, and here you are saying that all of that was useless, that you just want to scrap everything and start afresh. And second, let's say if you if you don't do that, then what other options do you have? You don't have money to start a business. Your parents do not, your parents would say like, hey, you know what, I just don't want to go to the US, and maybe I'll take a year break and do something else. There is no option like that, because eventually they start depending on you, on the on your job salary or whatever you make. Your family is now dependent on you, and because of that you don't have much options. And the same happened with me. And 1.5 years, as I was saying, I was doing GRE, and then I got fascinated with this thing called podcasting, where I can have conversation with people, learn from them, and maybe find a blueprint of what I should do next in my life. And when I was doing that, I would tell my parents that, hey, you know what, this GRE thing is not, this is really something that I don't think I want to do, because I hate being research scientist, and I don't want to continue studying pharmacy, because, for the rest of my life, I don't think I'm going to be happy doing this. So yeah, if you, I come from Nepal, and if you go there, you will see like every parent, like I would say 90% of parents would want their kid to go to the go outside the country. Now, if you are a smart kid, if you are doing academically good, and if you can make it to the to the US or Canada or Australia, then you go there, right? And if you are somebody who's not good at study, and if you want to go for work, then you go to the Dubai or Arab, wherever you get. Like, the whole thing is you got to go outside of the country, because they say that there are no opportunities in the country. And also that conditioning where you would get the references not only of your uncle. By the time I was in college, then going to the US or the Canada or Australia is not like 1 in 3 villages kind of a thing. Now it has become more regular thing, where you would see your friend going to the US, or your family friend's son or daughter going to the US. So it has become more common thing. And people are like, hey, you know what, I think anybody can go there. And with that conditioning, and I go to my parents and say that, hey, you know what guys, I just don't want to do this. I think I just want to stay back here, do this podcasting thing, and see what I can make out of it. And they went crazy, like, what are you talking about? You can do this anywhere. You don't have to stay back to do the this podcasting thing. Go to the US and do whatever you want to do. And they knew for a fact that obviously they were in not a position to fund my education to the US. They knew that I'm gonna get scholarship. There is no way that they could fund my education to the US. And they knew for a fact that our kid was capable of getting the scholarship. And here I am. And I would go and I would hear them. I would go back and start preparing for GRE. And then I would think about that, how I'm about to waste another 2 years and the following years doing this pharmacy thing and becoming a research scientist. And that would really frustrate me. And I would come back and, read more about podcasting and see how it would be a really amazing thing for me to explore the first true dream that I had, my own dream. And that would really excite me. And I would stay late night doing other things, researching about the guests that I want to interview, researching about the microphone that I want to buy, and so on and so forth. And that would really excite me. And the moment and then they would say like, hey, what are you doing? We haven't seen you, preparing for your exam in the past couple of days. And I was like, oh yeah, I'll go back and, pick the preparation material and, do the preparation again. And I would get frustrated, as I said, and I would just switch and go back to the podcasting. And this kept happening for a few weeks. And then I had enough of it. And I went to my dad and I told him, and one day I packed everything. I packed all my preparation material, packed into a rag and threw it into the corner of the house and, room rather, and told my dad that, hey, you know what? I'm not gonna do this. Like, all I'm asking to you is just give me 1 year. If I can make anything out of it, that's good. If not, then I'll live the rest of my life in your terms. But all I want is just 1 year of time from you. And obviously I was doing job at the side, and I had a job on the side to bring food on the table. And I was like, all I want is 1 year of my life. And if I can't make anything out of this, I'll do whatever you want me to do for the rest of my life. I wish that conversation was as easy as it sounds. So we ended up not talking for 2 weeks, me and my dad. And but the good thing that came out of that was they did not my mom, not my dad, both of them kept their mouth shut for a year, and I thank them for that. While there has been instances in between where they would ask, hey, I don't think this is going to work. Do you still want to reconsider this? But still, they did not put the immense pressure on me saying that, hey, you know what, stop this, and I'm absolutely against this. Obviously, my dad was the unhappiest person for that, more or less they kept their mouth shut for 1 year, and after that there is no looking back. But the conditioning, yes, absolutely, there was the societal conditioning, because everyone does that. Like, after you have completed your high school or college, you go to the masters for the US or Canada or Australia or Finland or Norway, wherever you can just get out of the country, or Germany, you get out of the country. That's known, that's fact, and that's the conditioning that you grow up with. And here you are saying that I just want to stay back and try and do something here.
Nice. I think it's wonderful. I so relate to it because wonderful analogy that I find. I talk to a lot of our international guests, and I see in their childhood there's a lot of upbringing, there's a lot of exposure, there's a lot of freedom. Whereas us as Indians, and I would say the entire Asian subcontinent to a larger extent, where we are kind of largely structured to think. I too relate to the story, like, especially if you want to try and do something creative, you have to push that. Like, I remember when I finished my graduation in engineering, everyone was getting into a plush IT job. They were all going into the US either to do their masters, or they were getting a campus placement which would put them in offshore, and they would go off to the US and do that. And I said, you know what, in the final year of my college, I really looked and I said, I can't be doing coding for the rest of my life. I had got into a fascination for all design, multimedia and mass communication. I said, no, I think I have to be doing something else altogether. And I remember I had a very similar conversation with my parents, where I went and said, you know what, I think this does not keep me happy. Whereas if I do something like this, I think this is my calling, and I think I'm going to be happy. And I too feel extremely grateful. My parents said only one thing: I don't understand anything that you're talking about, but if that is going to keep you happy, just go ahead and do it. And I'm so grateful. And I always mention this, from Indian parents and the people in Asia, if you actually get your parents to even agree to, willing to experiment with you for a year or believe with you for a year, is a big thing. And I think those are grateful moments that we should look at, because I think it's our culture and conditioning, where we have taking that itself is a major step, and that happens, it's amazing. And I'm very happy in your story too. You've had that point, where the family still believed. They might have had their apprehensions and doubts and all that, but they still said, you know what, I think that makes him happy. I think underlying thought inside would have been that, okay, I think he's happier and he's doing it, let him probably try that out. I'm sure their conversations would have gone that way. And what a wonderful product you are today.
I'm sure on the back of their head they knew that, hey, you know what, he's gonna fail anyways, he's not gonna make anything out of this anyways, so at least let him fail for a year, and then and then he would have nothing left to say. So I think it would have been that, because absolutely not in favor. And happiness is something that when, as I said, when you come from a low middle class family, the happiness for you is money. That's it. Like, that's the understanding that your parents have. Like, if you are making more money, then you are more happy. As simple as that. They won't understand the happiness in the true sense, where you get to do what you are doing, you do what you love. But I think it's more about, like, if you make more money, then you are going to be more happy, and you are going to only make more money if you go outside. If you are here, then you are not as much. So
perfect. I would say that's like a wonderful thing that you realize and the family realize at some point of time. So we were talking about how conditioning happens in the subcontinent, and how it's important for one to be creative to overcome this conditioning at some point of time in your life. So it's very important that you take the mantle in your hands and decide that, yes, I'm going to go ahead and fight this out. So at that stage, I want to ask you this question. Is important, like, how important was it for you to, I know it was your dreams and passion and all that there, but underlying on the other end is also the fear, the uncertainty, the unknown factor of where is it all going to take me. How did you face that battle, where you had to be vulnerable enough in front of your family, in front of your friends and everybody, and to the world itself, to your guests and everybody? How was vulnerability playing an important part in your life?
So I think, it plays a role, vulnerability, and, the more and more on the other context, I'll talk about it, later, because I think, that is something that I, for the past year or so, I have been going deeper and deeper and trying to understand the role of vulnerability as a creative person, as somebody who is putting the content out there. So when I was at that phase, I think, being completely open with the parent and telling them like, hey, you know what, this is what it is, and this is what I want to do, and I don't care how foolish it might sound, which it completely sounded. And going back to the job, and I was working with obviously the folks, and then telling them that, hey, you know what, guys, this is what I'm up to, and they were like, why the hell would you want to do that? Like, and it doesn't make any sense. Does anybody even listen to this kind of stuff? Podcast in itself as a medium was completely new at that point of time. Not many people were doing. You could literally count the number of people doing podcasts in the country in the fingers of your hands. And here you are saying that you want to try and do that and make a career out of it. And I also did not know how I'm ever gonna make that into a career, or maybe start a company later on, right? Like, right now that we have built a company, around podcasting. When I started back in 2017, none of those were, things that I thought I'm going to do. I just thought that, hey, I'm going to have conversations with these people and let's see where it goes. I just don't know where it might go, but let's just have conversation and let's see where it goes. And because I had that ultimatum from my parents, which is that you just have 1 year to make sure that it works and also make sure that it makes money, only you will be able to continue doing this. Otherwise, you have to follow what we decide for you. And that was the agreement that I had with my parents, right? And because of that kind of forced me to also figure out ways to make money out of it. And I think having that kind of deadline really helped. And being open with your parents and like, hey, this is what I want to do and this is what I don't want to do, and I don't want you guys to, other way of doing it is like, hey, oh yeah, I'm preparing for this, and you do something else. But that's not being open with your parents, right? But being open, and even if it sounds really, if it's a difficult conversation to have, and ask me, but just go ahead and have that conversation anyways. And even if it means that you end up not talking with your parents, I think for that short term, if your intentions are pure and if you are, looking at doing something good for yourself, for your life, you want to take control of your life, I think it's okay even if your parents don't talk to you for a week, a month, or maybe even a couple of months. Because when you get the results, when you make something out of this, everyone will understand and, things will start falling in place. But it's just that period. I think what has also helped me is completely shutting the door to outside world and just listening to your own voice that says that, hey, I think you can make something out here. Okay. Just go ahead and do it and let's see. Just don't listen to any of them. Don't listen to your parents because they don't know what they are talking about, because they also don't know what the whole thing that you're trying to do. Your parents don't understand that. Your friends don't understand that either, because they are so conditioned to do the regular stuff, go to the job and do the things, or maybe do the other stuff, but they just don't understand what you're trying to do, and they would think crazy. So no point in having conversation with them. But instead, try and follow the people in the industry that you want to be, whatever that is, right? If you are a singer, songwriter, you want to build your career in singing or songwriting, follow the people who are in that and try and listen to them. Try and see what they have to say about building a career in that, or just learn from them instead of getting advice from these people. I think that really helps, where you shut the door and you just don't take advice from the people who are not qualified to give that advice. Even they are closest, nearest, dear ones, but they are not qualified to give that advice because they haven't been on the path that you are, and you are saying that, hey, you know what, I'm going to create this new template for myself, and you don't have to follow anyone's template. And because you are trying to create the new template for your own life, no one else have had that template earlier before you, right? So just shut that door, and as I said, be open when you have to communicate it with you, and try and make them understand. But at the same time, take that stand for your dreams. I know that it's not same for everybody. Some people might have more responsibilities than other, but still try and figure out if there is a way that you can try it at least for a year. And the only reason that I say do it at least for a year is when you do for a year and when you fail, and then you will not have regret later on that, hey, you know what, I give it a try, but it did not work. Instead of that, hey, I wish I had tried that, I had given it a shot. I think my life trajectory would have been completely different.
Oh, perfect. I think it's wonderfully put by you, and so resonate with what you've been saying, because as creative individuals, we all go through this point in our lifetime, where you come out of that family surrounding, you get into the industry. I so relate to, I used to feel I was like crazy, knocking every little production house door, trying to be a filmmaker or getting into movies, and it's from the people that you pick the advice from. There've been tons of people who said, I used to be in Bombay from South, not knowing anyone, and they said, "Arey, why are you wasting time? There are tons and lakhs of people who don't get an opportunity here. And I think it's good you go back." I would wonder, why are these people advising me on these lines? At the same time, there were wonderful people who actually gave me those right pieces of advice. If you want to become a director, if you want to do this, you have to go and fight that battle out, where you can be anybody in this, but if you want to be a director, which is like, you have to be the captain of the ship who gets all the brickbats when anything goes wrong. At the same time, when something great happens, it's shared between the entire team. But if you are willing to take that, go ahead and try that. And some people really guided me, and I'm really fortunate for all those people who guided me in our early life. And I'm sure you would also resonate with that, with all the wonderful people who kind of picked you and channelized you to go where you are, So our understanding is, listen to the right people. From there, I want to also ask slightly different, this thing, when you're doing this, you're in this stage of it, I also find that to be creative, you can't be just on the vulnerable side. So one the vulnerable side pushes you to be doing that. The other side is your play, the flow in which you try and do that. How important is to keep that quotient in your head so that you can turn around making amazing content. How do you see oscillating, or you feel we need to be in that state constantly so that we can create amazing content?
So I think you can't be in flow 100% of the time, right? You keep oscillating between having the creative block where you absolutely feel that, hey, I just don't know what I should do next, right? And then you go to the place where there are ideas buzzing, and you just want to keep making note of those ideas, because there are so many ideas coming up. And this often happens when we let's say when we are discussing new show ideas, and and then we all kind of keep brainstorming, and then all of a sudden, like maybe in a day, or sometimes maybe in a week, and everything starts popping out on your head, and you go like crazy, like, hey, what, we can do this, and like team is like, what's going on here? Like all of a sudden you have all these ideas, and you just don't know when it comes in, right? And you have this flow state, as you say, where you have this stream of ideas coming out of your head, you keep oscillating between this, where you have a complete, you completely feel clueless, you just don't know how to pull it off, and you have no idea. But what I have realized, what works really for me is is the beginning, is starting to work on something. Like if I just keep thinking about some ideas, like, hey, I don't know, how can I do this, versus if I sit down and start like jotting things down and try and make the maps and mind maps and try and connect the ideas, then that's when I start that's when I realized that I come up with a lot of interesting ideas. Once I begin, then I think maybe your brain also connects all the different dots that are there, instead of just sitting down and thinking, hey, I don't know what I should be doing on this, versus you starting to putting things on paper. You can connect a lot of ideas, dots, that maybe a lot of ideas that you have heard, because we are constantly consuming one thing or the other, and not necessarily you make the dots or connections from the let's say if I'm working on creating a new podcast show, then not only the ideas about the podcast, right? It might come from like, hey, you know what, I have seen that Instagram reel, and maybe we can bring a bit of that element in this show. Hey, I have watched that TV show, or maybe Netflix show, and I think there's something that I can, some element from there I can probably give on this idea, and which would make make this a great idea and make it a unique one, right? So it's always that. And I won't say like you are constantly, you can, I don't think it's true for anyone like where you can constantly be on that flow, because what I feel is the ideas come from also the fact that how much you are consuming, because it's equally important that you consume, and also when you are consuming, what's actually happening is you are consuming, and you're just building in the library, and your things are scattered on your head. And when you sit down to create something, and all of a sudden you see that this dot connected here, and you kind of connect these ideas with one another, and then you create something out of it. So yeah, it's that oscillation that always happens.
Yes, I think you put it out very wonderful. You have those oscillations, and you find different ideas sparked here and there, and at some point of time you connect the thread, and where the magic really happens is when you start connecting those dots. So it brings me also to this whole question, when you're connecting these dots and you're trying to build a wonderful piece of content, it's also important that you cannot you need to believe in what is happening. It's like, one, you need to trust your idea, and the second factor is, will people trust the idea that I'm going to present it out to them? So how do you see that, winning that confidence, or it's the trust, or that sense of feeling like, I know this is going to work? Where do you find that point?
Yeah, this is a bit of a tricky one, because there's always this battle as a creative that, hey, what, this is what I like to produce, and there is something that people would like to see or hear or watch, whatever creative field, or listen, whatever creative field that you are in, right? So I think it's always that battle of there are things that you get way too excited about, and then you realize, hey, what, this is not, while you might be really, really interested because that's something that you deeply care about, but people might not enjoy it, right? So I think once you have that whole process of going through and refining the idea and stuff like that, then you bounce it off with people, and then you see the reaction. And like what we do is every single Friday, right, within our team, what we do is we do an hour-long meeting where everybody get to pitch their idea with each other. And when I'm pitching my idea with my team, I'm constantly not looking at what they are saying, what they are going to give as a feedback at the end of it. But when I'm pitching the idea, I look at their faces, right? And if there is if their face lightens up and brightens when you are sharing that idea, and there are some sparkle that you see on their eyes when you are sharing the idea, then it's like, oh, you know what, they really, really like the idea. And the likelihood of other people who are gonna enjoy listening to this content when it's made into the actual piece, then it's so it's like absolute go, right? And it's like, yeah, this is done. And I don't you don't really pay attention to what they say, because oftentimes they want to be kind to you and maybe give you while we say that you guys can be as brutal as you can to give to the feedback, but there might be always a resistance to put things as it is. But when you see that sparkle on their eyes, then you are like, yeah, this is a good one. And when you're sharing the ideas, and people are just listening to it, and just nodding their heads, and just listening to you, not make just maybe giving this poker face, and at the end of it they will just give a smile and they say like, yeah, this sounds like a good one, maybe we can, and then that this idea needs to be reworked or refined, because you don't see that sparkle in their eyes when you're sharing the idea, where they think like, oh my god, this is amazing. And that happens with us as well. When someone in the team is like, that happens with me as well, right? When somebody is sharing the idea and they are pitching their ideas, most of the time I'm just listening, and and then my mind is wandering around and stuff like that. And when it's that idea which like really sticks out, and you leave everything and you are 100% focused, and you want to hear more on that idea, and you're like, oh my god, this is so amazing, let's go ahead and produce it, right? So I think having that kind of creative circle, which is kind of a safe space where you are allowed to share, having this safe space where you are allowed to share all these silly, stupid, dumb ideas, and having the people who don't judge you how bad the idea might be, and having that first kind of a point of feedback, because these are the people who are hearing the idea for the first time. If let's say if there are 5 people in the team who are coming together on that meeting, and if you see 3 people with their feeling really excited about the idea as you are, then that means that it's very likely that the particular idea will work, and that particular piece of content might work really well for larger audience as well, because you have the first feedback right there. So I think that is the kind of process that we follow before deciding to pick up on any ideas. And most of the times we say that, hey, you know what, this is a great idea, but I think you need to work on this or that, and we constantly are giving feedback to each other as well on like, hey, this is what I would like to hear more on this idea. This is something that would have made this idea sparkle. Can you please rework on this and maybe present in one of the upcoming idea pitch meetings, where you can just bring in your idea and you can pitch those. So yeah, I mean, that's the kind of a cycle that we follow, and oftentimes it so happens that you go completely blank on those idea pitch meetings, and that, hey guys, I have nothing to present this week, because I have not been able to work, and there's nothing creative that has come out this week which is worth your time, where I have something to pitch. And that's I think that's okay to sometimes not have ideas. You always have the creative block, but yeah, I think sparkle in the eyes is something that I'm constantly looking for.
I think wonderful. I think in terms of teams and building your team's trust and confidence that you win. But I'm going to dig a little more deeper in this aspect, where I'm going to ask is, you wonderfully put it in terms of winning the trust of the team and doing a creative process. I'm going to ask, as a artist or as a presenter, as a creative person, you're always in this dilemma, or in that stage, like you mentioned that you said, this is what I like and I want to do, but this is what probably sells, but then what sells may not always be at the fulcrum of creative expression. So how much of percentage do you give? Do I focus more on what sells, or do you completely separate that? This is for business and this is for my soul satisfaction. I don't mind if I don't make a single penny out of it, but I'm just doing this for soul satisfaction.
Yeah, I think that happens quite often, and then we have realized what, as you correctly said, what sells versus what I want to create, because that really gets me excited. And also the other thing is, what usually sells is not also the something that will keep the creative juices and the excitement that you have about creating something, that's something that you will always have, not only for you but also for the team. Because often we have our team members coming back to us and say that, hey, can you give me to work on something interesting, because I'm kind of feeling bored with what we normally do. And that is something that happens with you as well, right? So again, at the same time, you have to understand that, hey, you know what, you have bills to pay, you have to pay your salaries, you have to pay for the infrastructure, you have to pay for the tools, and there are certain expenses and that needs to be covered. And expressing your creativity will not pay. And quenching that creative thirst and the itch that you have, that, hey, you know what, I want to feel proud for producing those shows. And some of the shows that we are most proud of didn't make any money for us, but when you look back, still, if somebody asks me, like, hey, what is the best work that you guys have produced, then it would be those work which would be the reference point for us to say that, hey, you know what, that this is what we are capable of producing. This is the kind of things that we are able to produce. So I think I would say here's how me and my partner Sonia at WYN Studio, we look at this thing, right? So we always say that, these ideas which sells are the ones that will always fuel your creative pursuits, and these are the ideas that will always fuel the ideas that you want to do to quench your creative thirst and maybe push your boundaries as a creator to create something new, something that that people might have never seen or heard much before, and trying those kind of stuff. We try and find that balance. So here's how we think about it. We try and not put anything out of our pocket to kind of quench that thirst. We try as much as possible to fuel our thirst using the fuel, which is money in this case, to kind of to fuel these creative pursuits, so that we don't end up running in the losses and land in the place where we are just doing it as a passion project, because it's at the end of the day, if you look at the whole thing, whether that's you do it to sell it, whether you do it to fuel your creative quench, is that it's a business at the end of the day, and you have to look at the P&L statements, unfortunately. But then you look at the P&L, and then you say that, hey, you know what, I think I can fuel this one idea because we do have enough cushion right now, and you just go ahead and, like, hey, what is the one thing that we are most excited about, which not necessarily is going to make us money, but it's going to get all of us excited. Everyone who's going to be involved in this is equally excited, and that has happened so many times where we have new things coming up which we are really excited about, and everybody gets excited. And I think that's important as well, not only because you want to quench your creative thirst, also to keep that freshness alive in the team, keep that and also allow your team to think that, hey, you know what, I'm getting this opportunity to grow and learn and expand, because every maybe few months, not as much as we do the regular stuff, like every couple of months I get to work on something really interesting, something that I haven't done before, which really pushes me outside, which makes me think outside of the box, which makes me push my limits, right? And you are constantly challenging the team. So I think that also helps you push those boundaries and limits, and to keep the freshness going on. So that's important, even though it does not make you any money. So I think that's how we kind of try to find the balance, like as long as we can fuel it. So I would say, like, if you asked for the number, so I would say 30% is trying to quench our thirst, and 70% is creating something that sells.
I think wonderfully put. Similar mantra for me also in my life, where I tell my team as well the same thing, like, to do the things that we really want to do, we have to do a bit of work that actually sells, because if that is not there, whereas like we all come from that, like in India, in Indian context, we say, if the dal roti is not taken care of, then really creative stuff is very difficult to get and achieve. And that brings, you were mentioning a lot about your teams, so, and also I feel the whole creative process is just not just a solo process, and you've done that transition, from a single podcaster, where the entire creative process is just you and your guest and what you think and do that, to your transition today as a studio and as a team working with multiple resources, multiple talent. How has this creative collaboration transitioned, from where you're the boss and you decide and you do everything, to a more collaborative process where you have to, even though you might head the whole process, but then you'll have like conflicting thoughts and ideas being bombarded, questioned at every instant. How do you see this whole creative collaboration working?
I think in the creative field, there is one thing that you need to always keep in mind, because as you said, right, the bigger the gap that you have as a, as you said, like, boss and employee, the bigger, higher the chances that you are not going to get any input from your team members, because, when the boss says that this is it, then this is it. People might not have the courage to come up and tell you that, what you're thinking is really a crap. Like it doesn't make sense at all. So I think, giving that freedom to your team, I guess, is the first thing. And here's what we have done. That because of the lockdown, and we, in the past lockdown, the last year's lockdown, we hired most of our team members during that lockdown, and everybody was working remotely. We would come and connect on the Zoom and get to the work and stuff like that. But the actual bonding as a human, that was due for the longest period of time. And when we had the opportunity to reopen our offices back in January, and from January till March, when we opened our office, first 15 days, we took, both me and Sonia, who is my partner, we both, and I'm so glad to have her as a partner, because we aligned so much in so many aspects, because it's really difficult that if you really believe in a lot of things, and this is where vulnerability comes in. Now, when we had allotted that 15 days, right, and because I and Sonia, both of us strongly believe in the personal transformation and growing as an individuals first, and we value the training aspect and letting the team to be themselves and feel themselves, right? So we took this effort to get the team to open and know each other, like to inside out, right? And that begins with you being vulnerable in front of your team. Now, we did this activity where your team members have to kind of chart their entire life journey, and this activity is called a lifeline, where they make a list of things that has happened from when they grew up, when they were born to where they are today. And they would write the age, like year 2 this happened, year 3 this happened, and when they start doing this, they are instructed that this is only for your reflection of your life. And then on the second stage, you make them share that with others. Obviously, the incidents that they are comfortable with. It's not like something that you have to share everything, but whatever you are comfortable with, please share with all of us about your life. And then that, if you just ask somebody from your team member to just talk about their life without you sharing your life, it's highly unlikely that people are going to be vulnerable and share that. First, you need to create that safe space. And that begins by me being vulnerable first. That begins by me sharing my shortcomings from my life in front of my team, saying that, hey guys, you know what, this is where I fucked up in my life, and these are the mistakes that I have made, and this has been my journey. This is how my life journey was. And when you share your deepest darkest stuff with the people which you think that you will not be able to share publicly, when you do that, then what you are doing is you are allowing your team members also to open up and be vulnerable in front of you and everyone else. And then and then goes to my partner Sonia, and it's her, and she shares her life journey right after I shared. Now they see these two of the bosses being open and vulnerable to the core, where they feel like, oh my God, they have such a powerful story. They are not anything different. They are not special people. They are not like, anything different than us. They had their own journey. And then, in end of the 2 hours of this exercise, you will see everybody hugging each other and understanding each other to the core, which also gives opportunity for each other to now not only see them as a person who is assigned with a certain role, but also see them as an individual with a story, and also understand why is this person's like that. And there is always a story, and that story. And when you do that, that gives you the that makes you comfortable to come and talk about anything, because because you have formed that bond with each other, you understand each other. And when you do that, and that has helped us a lot, Now my team member can like come to me or my partner and they can say like, you know what, guys, what you're thinking, it's a crap. It doesn't make sense at all. And that's totally fine for them to come and tell us. And we don't get offended when they come and say that, you know, this is completely, you know, rubbish. And we have the same thing to say to, you know, and we can do the same to them as well, right? Hey, you know what you're thinking is really, really crap. And they won't take it like personally saying that, oh, you know what, he's a boss and he's saying that to me. But instead they would say like, oh, you know what, there must be something that, you know, I can do better, because you have completely removed the whole friction, you know, from your team to come up and, you know, give you any ideas or share you the honest feedback. So I think people say that, hey, you know what, you should be honest when you are giving feedback. But I think that kind of stems from the fact that how you are creating the environment and how open environment that you are creating where people can really come and talk about it. So I think, giving that space is something that needs to be taken as a serious activity where you really allow team to open up. But now think about this for a second. These are the people who are eventually, let's say, when we start growing our team, these are the people who are going to be the managers who will be managing people. And if you pass this on to them, then this is exactly what they are going to do with their team members. Let's say, you know, if they have a team of their own, then they are going to do the same thing where like, you know what, my boss, he or she allows me to, be myself and share what I'm feeling without having to think for a second of judgment. And they know that, you know, we have their back, and that's why they're going to do the same with the people that they are going to be managing. So I think it's more on the culture side, I would say. And that's where, like, you know, you give that freedom for your team, and then, you know, you open their ideas, and we have our team members coming in constantly thinking about how we can get better, and they keep bouncing the ideas without thinking that, hey, you know, what would Bijay think if I share this stupid, silly idea? They don't have that friction at all because you have removed all those barriers for them to come openly.
Beautiful, Bijay. I think that's a very well put, and how you've kind of grooming up your team. That brings me to a very concluding question to you. You know, are creative people happy people, or is being creative the mantra to be happy in life?
So I think, our creative happy people, instead of happy, what I feel is like they are in the flow of doing things, and, you know, they don't seem to care a lot about what's going around and, you know, what's happening. And when you are in that creative process, when you have the feeling of you creating something is always something that you look forward to, which is like, which is a great sense of satisfaction that you have when you put your heart, soul, and then, you know, create something which people appreciate, and you have this sense of satisfaction that you have put there, right? At the same time, there's also a bit of a pressure that you need to create much better thing, because, you know, expectations continuously keep rising, every single time that you deliver something, right? So that's one part of it. And the other side of it, like, do you need to be creative to be happy? Not necessarily, I would say, because it can be anything that you can do, and not necessarily the creative work. But I think, you know, the regular mundane work sometimes can get monotonous, and, you know, that kind of become the repetitive monotonous thing where, you know, you just can't do anything different, right? And not to say that one thing is better than the other. For instance, like, for example, let's say for an air hostess to go and every single day do the same thing, like make the same announcement, do the same safety procedures, and do the same thing every single day, can get monotonous, at least for, if I look from the creative person's angle, that really looks monotonous. But, I might be completely wrong, because let's say your hostess can be, saying that, hey, you know what, I love what I'm doing. I get to interact with so many new people. That's the newness in my job, right? And, that keeps things fresh, because I get to meet so many new people every single flight. And that could be, something that, they look forward to if they, I don't think I really have an answer to that one. Like, do I have to be absolutely creative for that? It totally depends. I think it's more about the love for what you are doing, And I think if you love what you're doing, whether that's something creative, whether that's something repetitive, if you love what you're doing, I think you can be happy in whatever you do.
Okay, that's an interesting perspective of from somebody who's very creative and who does that in terms of what can really make somebody happy. I'm trying to prove this hypothesis out there. It's like probably it's being creative, or probably it's like the creative people are the people who can actually make the world a happier place. There are different sides of coins which are coming up, but then it's interesting having you on this wonderful talk, Bijay. Learned a lot about you and the wonderful way you're thinking and grooming your team, and it's been an absolute pleasure having you on the talk today.
Thank you, Harish. Thank you so much. It was a great conversation, and you are a great host. Obviously, been doing this for a while, no wonders. But I really enjoyed this conversation. Thank you so much for having me here.